The bullet that shattered Victoria Harper's leg also shattered her future, or so everyone in Independence, Missouri told her during the long, fever-soaked summer of 1876. Victoria sat on the worn wooden porch of her family's small house on the outskirts of town, watching the dust settle from another wagon rolling past without stopping. Her right leg, twisted and scarred from where the stray bullet had torn through muscle and bone during a bank robbery gone wrong 6 months ago, throbbed with phantom promises of the dance halls she would never visit again. At 22 years old, she had watched every eligible bachelor in 3 counties find reasons to look elsewhere for a wife. Even Samuel Morrison, who had been courting her seriously before the accident, had stammered awkward apologies before riding off to marry the banker's daughter instead. Her mother had stopped inviting neighbors over for Sunday dinner. Her father spent longer hours at his smithy, unable to meet her eyes when he came home smelling of coal smoke and defeat. Her younger sister, Emily, had married last month, and Victoria had watched from her chair as the whole town celebrated a union that should have been hers first. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on Independence's Main Street, turning the air thick and oppressive. Victoria adjusted the walking stick propped against her chair, a constant reminder of her new reality. She could walk, after a fashion, with a pronounced limp that made her hip ache after more than a few minutes of effort. The doctor had done what he could, but the bone had set crooked, and there was nothing to be done about it now. She heard hoofbeats approaching and did not bother to look up. Another stranger passing through, another reminder that the world kept moving while she sat still. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was deep, touched with a drawl that spoke of Texas or maybe further south. "I am looking for the Harper smithy. Would you happen to know where I might find it?" Victoria glanced up, shading her eyes against the sun. The man sat astride a large bay horse, dust covering his boots and the lower half of his dark pants. He wore a worn leather vest over a faded blue shirt, and his hat cast shadows across a face that was all angles and sun-weathered skin. But it was his eyes that caught her, clear and gray like storm clouds, looking at her with simple courtesy rather than the pity she had grown accustomed to seeing. "Around back," she said, pointing with her walking stick. "Follow the fence line. You will hear the hammer before you see the forge." "Much obliged." He tipped his hat, and she noticed a jagged scar running along his jawline. "Name is Vincent Cole. I am looking for work, and I heard your father might need an extra hand." "He does," Victoria admitted. "His apprentice ran off to try his luck in the California goldfields last month. Left him short-handed during the busy season." Vincent Cole nodded slowly, his gaze finally dropping to the walking stick, then back to her face without any change in expression. "Then I suppose I came at the right time. Thank you for the directions, miss." "Victoria Harper," she said, surprising herself. She had stopped introducing herself to strangers months ago. "Miss Harper." He smiled, just a slight upturn of his mouth that somehow transformed his stern features. "I hope to see you again." He rode around the side of the house, and Victoria found herself watching until he disappeared from view. Something about the way he had looked at her, like she was simply a person rather than a tragedy, left her unsettled in a way she could not quite name. That evening her father came home with Vincent Cole following behind, leading his horse. They had clearly been talking, and her father wore an expression she had not seen in months, something approaching contentment. "Victoria, set another plate," he called out. "Mr. Cole here is going to be working at the smithy, and he needs a place to stay until he gets settled. I offered him the room above the forge." Her mother appeared in the doorway, wiping flour from her hands. "Of course. Any friend of yours is welcome, Mr. Cole." "Just Vincent, please, madam." He removed his hat, revealing dark brown hair that needed cutting. "I do not want to impose. I can find a place in town." "Nonsense," Martha Harper said firmly. "That room is just sitting empty. You will stay there and we will hear no more about it. Come inside and wash up. Dinner will be ready shortly." Victoria maneuvered herself up with her walking stick, taking longer than she would have liked. By the time she made it through the door, Vincent had already moved to the wash basin on the back porch. She could hear him talking with her father about ironwork techniques and the properties of different metals, speaking with the ease of someone who genuinely understood the trade. Dinner was a livelier affair than usual. Vincent had a way of asking questions that drew her parents out, getting her father to tell stories about interesting projects he had worked on, and her mother to discuss her garden with pride rather than worry. Emily and her new husband John lived in town now, so it was just the four of them around the table. "How long have you been working with metal?" her father asked, passing Vincent the bowl of potatoes. "Since I was 14, Vincent replied. "My father had a small operation outside San Antonio. He taught me everything he knew before he passed. After that, I worked for a larger outfit for a few years, then spent time at various ranches and towns, going where the work took me." "No family?" Martha asked gently. "Not anymore, madam. Lost my mother when I was young and my father 5 years back. No siblings, and I never married." He said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity, the same way someone might comment on the weather. "What brings you to independence?" Victoria found herself asking. Vincent's gray eyes met hers across the table. "Honestly, I was tired of drifting. Started thinking it might be time to find a place to settle down, put down some roots. Heard Independence was a good town, growing but not so big that a man gets lost in it. Figured I would try my luck here." "You picked a good place," her father said. "Plenty of work for a skilled smith. Farmers always need tools repaired, wagons need parts, and with the railroad expansion, there is talk of more industry coming through." The conversation flowed on, but Victoria found her attention drifting back to Vincent. He was probably in his late 20s, she guessed, with the kind of weathered look that came from years of hard work under the sun. There was something solid about him, dependable. And he had not once looked at her with pity or averted his eyes from her leg. After dinner, Victoria helped her mother clear the dishes while the men went out to show Vincent the room above the forge. She moved slowly, carefully balancing plates while leaning on her stick. "He seems like a good man," Martha said quietly as they worked. "Your father was pleased with his knowledge, said he can start properly tomorrow." "That is good," Victoria replied neutrally. Her mother paused, her hands in the wash basin. "Victoria, I know these past months have been hard. But you cannot give up on life entirely." "I have not given up on life, Mama. I have simply accepted reality." Victoria kept her voice even, though the words cut. "No man wants a wife who cannot dance, who cannot help properly with farm work, who might pass on weakness to children. I have made my peace with it. You are 22 years old. You have so much life ahead of you. Yes, and I will live it, just not the life I expected." Victoria managed a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "I am learning to be content with that." But that night, lying in bed with the window open to catch the slight breeze, Victoria found her thoughts returning to the stranger in the smithy loft. She heard him moving around up there, the creak of floorboards, the sound of his boots being set aside. It was strange having someone new so close by after months of isolation broken only by family. She told herself it meant nothing. He was just a hired hand, a drifter who would probably move on when he got restless. Men like that did not settle down with broken women in small Missouri towns. But still, when she finally slept, her dreams were less haunted than they had been in months. Vincent Cole proved himself invaluable within days. He worked with the focused intensity of someone who found purpose in his craft, and her father began leaving him to handle projects independently. Victoria saw him occasionally when she made her slow journey to hang laundry or tend the small kitchen garden her mother maintained. He always nodded respectfully, sometimes offered a greeting, but never lingered or made a fuss. It was 2 weeks after his arrival when things changed. Victoria had made it out to the garden early, hoping to finish weeding before the afternoon heat became unbearable. She was kneeling awkwardly, trying to balance on her good knee while keeping her damaged leg extended, pulling at stubborn roots in the tomato patch. She had developed techniques over the months, ways of working despite her limitations, but they were slow and often painful. She was so focused on her work that she did not hear Vincent approach until his shadow fell across her. "Miss Harper, let me help you with that." Victoria looked up, squinting against the sun. "I can manage." "I do not doubt it," he said easily. "But there is no shame in accepting help when it is offered. I have a few minutes before your father needs me back at the forge." Before she could protest, he had knelt beside her and begun pulling weeds with quick, efficient movements. His hands were scarred and calloused from years of metalwork, but they moved through the garden with surprising gentleness. "You do not have to do this," Victoria said stiffly. "I know." He continued working, unbothered by her tone. "My mother kept a garden 3 times this size. She used to say that time spent making things grow was never wasted. After she died, I helped my father maintain it, found it peaceful, working with living things after spending all day with fire and iron." There was something about the way he spoke, casual and undemanding, that made it hard to maintain her defensive walls. Victoria picked up her trowel and went back to work alongside him, their hands moving through the soil in companionable silence. "That must have been difficult," she said after a while. "Losing your mother young, it was. But life does not stop for grief. We learned to keep going, my father and I. We figured out how to cook for ourselves, how to mend our own clothes. We were not very good at first, but we got better." He paused, pulling up a particularly stubborn weed. "I think that is what people do not understand about hardship. It does not make you less. It just makes you different, teaches you things you might not have learned otherwise." Victoria felt something loosen in her chest, a knot she had not realized was there. Most people do not see it that way. Most people are fools then. Vincent sat back on his heels, surveying their work. "You have gotten half this garden weeded on your own. That is not the work of someone who has given up or accepted defeat. That is the work of someone who does what needs doing, regardless of obstacles." She felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the sun. "I am just doing what I can. That is all any of us can do." He stood, offering her his hand. "Come on. Your mother mentioned something about fresh bread, and I have learned never to be late when good food is involved." Victoria hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. His grip was firm and steady as he helped her rise, handing her the walking stick without making a show of it. They walked back to the house together, and for the first time in months, Victoria did not feel like her limp was the only thing people saw. Over the following weeks, Vincent became a fixture in their household. He ate dinner with the family most evenings, his presence filling a gap Victoria had not recognized existed. Her father smiled more, engaged in animated discussions about metalworking innovations and business opportunities. Her mother fussed over ensuring he ate enough, treating him with the affection she might show a son. And Victoria found herself watching for him, listening for his voice, making excuses to be outside when she knew he would be taking a break from the forge. She told herself it was meaningless, that she was simply starved for company her own age, but her heart knew differently. One evening after dinner, Vincent found her on the porch again, watching the sun set over the western hills. The air had finally cooled, bringing relief from the oppressive August heat. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "It is a free country," she said, then immediately regretted the sharpness in her tone. "I mean, please do." He settled into the chair beside her, stretching out his long legs with a slight groan. "Your father worked me hard today. We are behind on a big order for the Jackson farm, all new tools before harvest season." "He seems happier with you here," Victoria observed. "He was struggling, trying to do everything alone. He is a good man, good teacher too. He has shown me some techniques I had never considered before." Vincent was quiet for a moment, then added, "You have a good family, Victoria. I hope you know that." It was the first time he had used her given name, and the sound of it in his voice sent a small thrill through her. "I do. They have been patient with me this past year." "Patient? Why would they need to be patient?" Victoria gestured at her leg with her walking stick. "I am not exactly the daughter they expected to have. I was supposed to marry well, give them grandchildren, help establish connections for Emily. Instead, I am the subject of pitying whispers and the reason people make excuses not to visit." Vincent was silent for so long that Victoria wondered if she had overstepped, revealed too much. But when he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful rather than pitying. "Can I tell you something? When I first rode up and saw you sitting here, before I knew who you were or what had happened to you, do you know what I thought?" She shook her head. "I thought, there is a woman with sad eyes and a proud bearing, someone who has been hurt but has not broken. I thought, I wonder what her story is. And then you gave me directions in a clear voice without any of the simpering or flirtation I have gotten used to from young women in towns I pass through. You treated me like a person, not a potential husband or a threat. I appreciated that." Victoria felt her throat tighten. "You are easy to talk to." "So are you." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, looking out at the darkening horizon. "I have been thinking lately about what it means to settle down, to build a life in one place. I am 28 years old. I have been drifting for more than a decade, telling myself I was seeing the country, learning my trade. But truthfully, I think I was just running from loneliness. And now," Victoria asked softly, "now I am tired of running. I want what my parents had before my mother died. A home, a purpose beyond just the next job, maybe someone to share it with eventually, though I know I am not much of a catch, just a hired smith with more scars than savings." "I think you are selling yourself short," Victoria said before she could stop herself. "You are skilled at your trade, respectful, hardworking. Any woman would be fortunate to have you." He turned to look at her then, and something in his gray eyes made her breath catch. "And what about you, Victoria? What do you want?" The question hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it again. What did she want? For months, she had convinced herself that wanting anything was pointless, that her future had been decided by a criminal's wild shot in a crowded street. "I do not know anymore," she finally admitted. "I used to want a lot of things. A husband, children, a home of my own, dancing at harvest festivals, traveling to see Emily when she had babies. Ordinary things that seemed guaranteed until they were not. Why are they not guaranteed now?" "Because nobody wants a crippled bride," she said, the words escaping before she could cage them. "I have heard it whispered, seen it in every man's eyes when they look at me. I am damaged goods, a burden rather than a help. Even Samuel, who courted me for months, could not stomach the idea of being tied to me for life." "Then Samuel was a coward and a fool," Vincent said flatly. "And anyone who thinks you are damaged does not deserve you anyway." Victoria laughed, but it came out bitter. "That is easy to say." "It is the truth." Vincent stood, moving to lean against the porch railing so he could face her directly. "Victoria, I have traveled across this country. I have seen strong men brought low by drink or gambling or simple bad luck. I have seen women hold families together through drought and disease. I have learned that strength has nothing to do with how fast you can run or whether your body works the way you want it to. It is about getting up every morning and doing what needs doing, regardless of how much it hurts. You make it sound noble. It is just stubbornness." "Then I admire stubbornness." He smiled, and again she was struck by how it transformed his face. "For what it is worth, I think any man who cannot see past your leg to the remarkable woman attached to it is too blind to deserve you. You are smart, capable, and you do not suffer fools. Those are rare qualities." Victoria felt tears prickling at her eyes and blinked them back furiously. She had not cried in front of anyone since the first awful weeks after the shooting. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because you deserve kindness," Vincent said simply. "And because I like you, Victoria Harper. I like talking with you. I like the way you observe the world, the dry comments you make when you think nobody is listening. I like that you have not let what happened to you poison you against everyone else." "I think it has poisoned me a bit," she admitted. "Maybe, but poison can be healed from given time and the right treatment." He pushed off from the railing. "I should let you have your evening, just wanted you to know that not everyone in the world is blind." He tipped his hat and headed toward the smithy, leaving Victoria alone with her racing thoughts. She sat there long after full dark descended, replaying the conversation, examining his words for hidden meanings or false comfort. But no matter how she turned them over, they felt genuine. For the first time since the shooting, she allowed herself to feel something she had thought lost forever: hope. The next few weeks brought a subtle shift in the dynamic between Victoria and Vincent. They found more reasons to be in each other's company, small moments throughout the day where their paths would cross. He started joining her in the garden most mornings before the heat became unbearable, claiming he enjoyed the peaceful work before the noise of the forge began. She started bringing him water and occasionally lunch during the day, telling herself it was just being neighborly. Her parents noticed, though they said nothing directly. Her mother hummed while she worked, and her father started making pointed comments about Vincent's character and work ethic. Emily visited one afternoon and immediately pulled Victoria aside. "The new smith seems nice," she said with studied casualness. "He is," Victoria replied, refusing to rise to the bait, "and handsome in a rugged sort of way. I suppose." Emily dropped the pretense. "Victoria, he looks at you the way John looks at me, like you are something precious. Are you truly too stubborn to see it? Even if he does, it does not matter." Victoria kept her voice low, conscious of Vincent working within earshot. "He will realize soon enough what everyone else has. That I am not worth the trouble." "You are an idiot," Emily said with sisterly frankness. "That man has been here over a month. If he was going to be scared off by your leg, it would have happened already. Maybe, just maybe, he actually sees you for who you are rather than what happened to you. Or maybe he is just being kind because he works for Papa." Emily sighed dramatically. "There is none so blind as those who will not see. Well, I have done my duty as your sister and pointed out the obvious. What you do with that information is up to you." But Emily's words stayed with Victoria, mixing with Vincent's earlier comments, creating a confusing tangle of possibility and fear. She had spent so long building walls around her heart, convincing herself that certain futures were closed to her. The thought of tearing those walls down, of making herself vulnerable again, was terrifying. It was a Saturday afternoon in late September when things came to a head. The summer heat had finally broken, replaced by the crisp promise of autumn. Victoria's father had gone into town for supplies, and her mother was visiting a neighbor who had just given birth. Vincent had finished his work for the day and found Victoria in the garden again, harvesting the last of the tomatoes before the first frost. "Good crop this year," he observed, kneeling to help. "Mama will be pleased. She puts them up for winter and we eat well because of it." Victoria placed another ripe tomato carefully in her basket. "Thank you for helping me keep up with it this summer. I could not have managed alone." "It was my pleasure. I meant what I said before about finding it peaceful." He worked in silence for a few moments, then said, "Victoria, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The shooting. Were you badly hurt beyond your leg?" It was not a question anyone had asked so directly. Most people danced around the topic or avoided it entirely. "No," she said slowly. "The bullet went through my leg, broke the bone. There was infection, fever. The doctor thought I might lose the leg entirely, but I was fortunate. It healed, just not straight." "Why do you ask?" "Because I wanted to understand. People talk about it in town like it was some great tragedy that destroyed you. But when I look at you, I see someone who survived something terrible and came out the other side. I wanted to know the truth rather than the gossip." Victoria set down the tomato she was holding. "The truth is, it did destroy parts of me, the life I expected, the future I had planned. But you are right that I survived. Some days I am proud of that. Other days I am just angry. You are allowed to be angry." "Am I?" "Because everyone seems to expect me to be gracefully resigned to my fate, to smile and pretend it does not matter that my entire life changed in an instant through no fault of my own." "That is because people are uncomfortable with real emotion," Vincent said. "They want you to perform acceptance so they do not have to deal with the messiness of your actual feelings, but you do not owe them that performance." Victoria felt something break open inside her, a dam she had been holding against a flood. "I am so tired," she whispered. "Tired of pretending, tired of being strong, tired of being grateful that I can walk at all when what I really want is to run, to dance, to feel normal again." "Come here," Vincent said gently, and when she did not move, he came to her, kneeling in the dirt of the garden and pulling her into an embrace. She stiffened initially, then collapsed against him, letting out the tears she had been holding back for months. He held her through it, one hand stroking her back, murmuring quiet reassurances that she did not have to be strong right now, that she was allowed to grieve what she had lost. When the storm finally passed, Victoria pulled back, wiping at her eyes with embarrassment. "I am sorry." "That was inappropriate." "No, it was human." Vincent's hands rested on her shoulders, steady and warm. "Victoria, I need to tell you something and I need you to really hear me. Can you do that?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "I care about you. Not as a friend, not as my employer's daughter, but as a woman I am falling in love with. I know the timing might seem wrong, that I have not been here long, but I am too old to play games or pretend I do not feel what I feel. You are remarkable, and I want to court you properly if you will let me. I want to take you to town dances even if we cannot dance, to Sunday services, to walk with you in the evenings and learn everything there is to know about you. I want a chance to prove that I see you, the real you, and that I am not going anywhere." Victoria stared at him, her mind struggling to process his words. "Vincent, you cannot mean that. I cannot. People will talk. Let them talk. I have never cared much what people think, and I am not about to start now." His gray eyes searched hers. "The only opinion that matters to me is yours. Do you feel anything for me? Even a little? Because if you do, then the rest is just details we can work through together." "I do," she admitted, the words tumbling out. "I have tried not to, tried to convince myself it was impossible, but I think about you constantly. I listen for your voice. I find excuses to be near you. But Vincent, you need to understand what you would be taking on. I will never be the wife other men have. I cannot help with heavy farm work, cannot chase after children the way a mother should, cannot even be certain I can have children at all. The doctor said the injury might have affected that too. Then we will figure it out together, Vincent said firmly. We will hire help if we need it. We will adopt children if we cannot have our own, or we will be content with just each other. Victoria, I am not looking for some idealized perfect wife. I am looking for you exactly as you are. Why? She asked desperately. Why me? You could have any woman in Independence, whole women who could give you everything you deserve. Because I do not want any woman in Independence. I want the one sitting in front of me, with dirt on her dress and tears on her face, and more courage in her little finger than most men have in their entire bodies. I want the woman who treats me like a person rather than a means to an end. I want Victoria Harper, and I will spend however long it takes convincing you that you are exactly what I want. I am scared, she whispered. So am I, he admitted. Terrified, actually. But I am more scared of not trying, of looking back in 5 years and wondering what might have happened if I had been brave enough to speak up. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the sincerity in every line of his face. Vincent Cole, the drifter who had appeared at her gate barely 2 months ago, asking for directions. Vincent, who had knelt in the garden beside her without being asked. Vincent, who saw her leg as just one part of her rather than the whole story. I would like that, she said quietly. I would like you to court me. But Vincent, I need you to be sure. Because if you change your mind, if you wake up one day and realize what you have bound yourself to, it will destroy me. I barely survived the loss of my future once. I cannot do it again. I am sure, he said, and the conviction in his voice made her believe him. Victoria Harper, I am asking permission to court you with the intention of eventually asking for your hand in marriage, if you will have me. I am asking you to trust me, to give me a chance to prove that I mean every word I am saying. Yes, she said, and felt lighter than she had in months. Yes, you can court me. Vincent's smile was blinding. Then he did something that shocked her into stillness. He released her shoulders and repositioned himself, going down on one knee in the garden dirt, looking up at her with those steady gray eyes. I am not asking you to marry me yet, he said clearly. But I want you to see that this is where I intend to end up. On my knees, asking you to spend your life with me. This is not charity, Victoria. This is not pity. This is me, Vincent Cole, telling you that you are exactly what I want, and I am willing to wait however long it takes for you to believe that. Victoria felt fresh tears spilling down her cheeks, but these were different, warmer. You are impossible. I have been told that before. He rose and pulled her to her feet, then surprised her by pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Come on. Let us get these tomatoes inside before your mother returns and wonders what we have been doing out here so long. They carried the baskets inside together, and Victoria felt the world shift around her, possibilities opening that she had thought closed forever. When her parents returned home and Vincent asked her father formally for permission to court her, the joy on their faces confirmed what she had suspected. Everyone had been hoping for exactly this outcome. The courtship that followed was unlike anything Victoria had imagined during her girlhood dreams. Vincent made good on his promise to take her places, helping her into the wagon he borrowed from her father for trips into town. They attended church services together, sitting in the back where she could stretch out her leg when it cramped. He walked with her in the evenings, matching his pace to hers without complaint. But more than the public courtship, it was the private moments she treasured. Mornings in the garden where they talked about everything and nothing. Evenings on the porch where he read to her from newspapers, sharing stories of the wider world. The way he listened when she spoke, really listened, like her thoughts mattered. He courted her family too, something she had not expected. He helped her father with extra projects, spent time teaching him new metalworking techniques he had learned in his travels. He fixed things around the house without being asked, mended her mother's broken garden gate, repaired the loose boards on the porch steps. He joked with Emily and John when they visited, treating them like the family he had lost. But he never pushed Victoria for more than she was ready to give. He held her hand when they walked but did not try to steal kisses. He spoke of his growing feelings openly, but did not pressure her to reciprocate at the same pace. He was, in every way, the opposite of Samuel Morrison, who had courted her with words but fled at the first real challenge. It was late October when they attended the Harvest Festival together. Victoria had not been to one since the shooting, unable to face the pitying stares and whispered conversations. But Vincent had asked, and something in his eyes made her brave enough to agree. The festival was held in the town square, with long tables laden with food and a small band playing cheerful music. Children ran between the booths while adults gossiped and conducted the subtle social transactions that kept small town life running smoothly. Victoria felt eyes turn to them as they arrived, saw the ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Vincent seemed oblivious, his hand steady on her elbow as he guided her to where food was being served. He filled a plate with her favorites without asking, remembering from previous conversations what she liked. They found seats at a table with Emily and John, and Vincent kept up an easy conversation that made it impossible for people to focus solely on Victoria's leg. Samuel Morrison appeared at one point, his new wife hanging on his arm. He stammered awkward greetings, his eyes not quite meeting Victoria's. "Vincent Cole," Vincent said, standing and offering his hand with perfect courtesy. "I do not believe we have met." "Samuel Morrison," the other man replied, shaking hands weakly. "I knew Victoria before. Did you?" Vincent's voice was mild, but there was steel underneath. "Then you know what a remarkable woman she is. I consider myself fortunate to be courting her." Samuel's face flushed red. His wife, a petite blonde whose name Victoria could not remember, looked between them with growing understanding. "We should let you return to your meal," she said quickly, tugging on Samuel's arm. "Enjoy the festival." When they had gone, Emily leaned across the table with a wicked grin. "I have never seen Samuel look so uncomfortable. That was wonderful." "Vincent did nothing wrong," Victoria protested, though she was fighting a smile. "Exactly," Emily said. "He was perfectly polite while making it crystal clear that Samuel is an idiot who let something precious slip through his fingers. It was beautifully done." Later, when the dancing started, couples moved to the cleared space in the town square. Victoria watched with the familiar ache of longing, remembering when she could move like that, light and free. Vincent appeared at her elbow. "Will you dance with me?" "Vincent, I cannot. You know that." "You can," he said gently. "Maybe not the way they are dancing, but we can move to the music. Come here." He helped her to her feet and led her to a quiet space at the edge of the dancing area, away from the main crowd. Then he positioned himself in front of her, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. "Put your weight on your good leg," he instructed. "Lean on me for the other. We will sway rather than step. Let me lead." The music was a slow waltz, and Vincent guided her gently, taking all her weight when she needed it, moving them in a subtle rocking motion that was more suggestion than actual dance. But they were moving to music together, and Victoria felt something break free inside her chest. "I am dancing," she whispered. "You are," he confirmed, and the pride in his voice made her eyes sting. "You are dancing with me, and you are beautiful." People were watching, Victoria knew, but for once she did not care. Let them see. Let them witness Vincent Cole dancing with the crippled girl, treating her like she was whole. Let them see that she had found someone who saw past the injury to the person beneath. When the song ended, Vincent did not immediately release her. Instead, he leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her lips, brief and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, Victoria Harper," he said quietly, just for her ears, in case there was any doubt. "I love you too," she replied, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. "I was scared to, but I do." Then that is all that matters. They left the festival shortly after, riding home in the borrowed wagon under a sky full of stars. Victoria leaned against Vincent's shoulder, feeling the steady warmth of him, the solid reality that this was actually happening. She was being courted by a good man who loved her, who saw her completely and chose her anyway. "When do you think you will ask?" she said suddenly. "Ask what?" Vincent's voice held amusement. "You know what? You already went down on one knee in the garden. When will you do it for real?" He was quiet for a moment, the wagon creaking beneath them. "When you are ready. When I am sure you believe that I am not going anywhere. When there is no doubt left in your heart that this is what I want. What if that takes a long time? Then it takes a long time. I am not going anywhere, Victoria. Get used to me." She smiled in the darkness. "I think I already am." November brought the first snow, and with it, Vincent's formal proposal. He took her to the spot where they had first worked together in the garden, now dormant and waiting for spring. He had cleared away the snow, and there was a blanket laid out with a small picnic, despite the cold. "I wanted somewhere that meant something to us," he explained, helping her settle onto the blanket. "This is where I first started falling in love with you, watching you work with such determination." Victoria laughed. "I was weeding. It was not very romantic. It was to me." He pulled out a small wrapped package and handed it to her. "Open this first." Inside was a delicate metal flower, wrought iron shaped with such skill that it looked almost alive. Each petal was individually formed and attached, the whole thing fitting in her palm. "I made it at the forge," Vincent explained. "An iron rose. It will never wilt or fade, no matter how harsh the winter. It reminded me of you." "It is beautiful," Victoria breathed, turning it to catch the weak winter sunlight. "I want to make you a whole garden of them," Vincent said, "to put around whatever home we build together. But first, I need to ask you something." He shifted on the blanket, going down on one knee despite the cold ground. "Victoria Harper, I am asking you to marry me. To build a life with me here in Independence. To let me spend every day for the rest of our lives proving that you are exactly what I want and need. Will you marry me?" Victoria looked at him, this man who had appeared in her life like an unexpected gift. She thought about the past months, how he had courted her patiently, proven his devotion through actions rather than just words. She thought about how he had given her back pieces of herself she thought lost forever. Confidence, hope, and the ability to imagine a future that included love. "Yes," she said clearly. "Yes, I will marry you, Vincent Cole." He pulled her into his arms, kissing her properly this time, deep and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, he produced a simple gold band. "It was my mother's," he said. "The only thing I have left of her. My father gave it to me before he died, told me to give it to someone worthy. You are the most worthy person I have ever known." He slipped it onto her finger, and Victoria looked at it through tears. "Whenever you want. Tomorrow, if you would like. Or next spring when the garden blooms again. I leave that up to you." "Spring," Victoria decided. "I want to marry you in the garden, surrounded by new growth. It seems fitting." They told her parents that evening, and her mother cried happy tears while her father shook Vincent's hand solemnly and welcomed him officially to the family. Emily shrieked with delight, and immediately began planning details. The news spread through Independence quickly, and if there were whispers about the crippled girl and the drifter Smith, they were drowned out by genuine well wishes from those who mattered. Winter passed in a blur of preparation. Victoria worked with her mother on a dress, something simple but beautiful that would not impede her movement. Vincent spent his free time building them a small house on land her father gave them as a wedding present, just down the road from the smithy. It was modest but well made, with a large kitchen that got good light and a porch facing west for watching sunsets. He also began making the iron flowers he had promised, forging roses and lilies and flowers Victoria could not name. He arranged them in a border around what would become their garden, creating something unique and lasting. The wedding took place on a warm day in early May, when the world was green and full of possibility. They set up chairs in the Harper garden, now awakening from winter dormancy. Victoria wore her simple dress with wildflowers in her hair. Vincent wore his best clothes, looking nervous and proud in equal measure. The ceremony was performed by the local minister, attended by family and a small group of friends. Victoria walked down the short aisle on her father's arm, her walking stick forgotten for the moment as she focused on Vincent's face, on the love and certainty she saw there. Her leg ached, but it did not matter. Nothing mattered except the man waiting for her. When they spoke their vows, Victoria's voice did not waver. "I take you, Vincent Cole, to be my husband. You have shown me that being broken can lead to being remade into something stronger. You have given me back my future and taught me that love is not about perfection but about choosing each other every day. I promise to choose you, to stand beside you, to build a life with you that is ours alone. From this day forward, you are my home." Vincent's vows were equally simple and heartfelt. "I take you, Victoria Harper, to be my wife. You have taught me what real strength looks like, and you have given me a reason to finally stop drifting. I promise to see you, all of you, every day. To support you in hard times and celebrate with you in good times. To build the life we both deserve together. From this day forward, you are my heart." When the minister pronounced them married, Vincent kissed his bride while their families cheered. It was not the grand wedding Victoria had once imagined in her girlhood, but it was better, more real, rooted in genuine love rather than social expectation. The reception was a joyful affair, with food and music and dancing. Vincent danced with Victoria again, that same gentle swaying they had done at the Harvest Festival, and this time no one whispered. They saw only a man and his bride, clearly devoted to each other. As the sun set and guests began departing, Vincent lifted Victoria carefully and carried her the short distance to their new house. "I want to do this properly," he explained at her protests. He set her down in the doorway of their home, and they stood there together, looking at the space they would fill with their life together. The iron flowers glinted in the gathering dusk, a promise kept. "Are you happy?" Vincent asked, pulling her close. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Victoria admitted. "You have given me everything I thought I lost." "No," he corrected gently. "You never lost anything. It was always inside you. I just helped you remember it." That night, as they lay together in their new bed, Victoria thought about the journey that had brought her here, the shooting that had shattered her leg and her future, the long months of recovery and grief, the moment Vincent rode up to her porch asking for directions. Every painful step that had led to this perfect moment. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent murmured in the darkness. "That I would not change anything," Victoria said. "Even the shooting, even all the pain. Because it brought me here to you, to this life. Is that strange?" "No," Vincent said. "I think it means you have made peace with your story, that you see it as something that shaped you rather than something that destroyed you. You helped with that. We helped each other. He kissed her temple. Get some sleep, Mrs. Cole. Tomorrow we start our life together. I cannot wait, Victoria whispered, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The first year of marriage brought adjustments and joy in equal measure. Victoria learned to manage a household that was hers alone, adapting tasks to accommodate her limitations while refusing to let them define her. Vincent continued working at her father's forge, with plans to eventually expand and create their own business. They fell into rhythms together, learning each other's habits and preferences, building the foundation of a life. They had difficult days too. Times when Victoria's leg hurt so badly she could barely walk, when frustration with her limitations made her sharp-tongued and withdrawn. Vincent learned to recognize these days, to know when she needed space and when she needed comfort. He never treated her like she was fragile, but he was always there when she needed him. In turn, Victoria learned about Vincent's ghosts, the nightmares that sometimes woke him, remnants of a hard childhood and years of lonely drifting. The way he sometimes went quiet, lost in thoughts of the family he had lost. She learned to draw him out, to remind him that he was no longer alone. They planted their first garden together that spring, expanding it to include vegetables and herbs alongside the iron flowers. Vincent built raised beds so Victoria could tend them without kneeling. They were a team, adapting and creating and building something uniquely theirs. It was late summer when Victoria began feeling ill. The nausea came in waves, and she tired more easily than usual. Her mother took one look at her and smiled knowingly. "You should see the doctor," Martha said gently. "I think you might be expecting." Victoria felt her heart stop. "That is not possible. The doctor said the injury might have affected that." "Doctors are not always right. Go see him. Let him examine you properly." The examination confirmed it. Against all odds, despite the doctor's earlier predictions, Victoria was pregnant, 3 months along, healthy and growing. She walked out of the doctor's office in a daze, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Vincent was at the forge when she found him, working on a complicated piece of decorative ironwork. He looked up at her approach, immediately setting down his tools at the expression on her face. "What is wrong? Are you hurt?" "I am pregnant," she blurted out. The doctor confirmed it. "I know he said it might not be possible, and I know we had talked about maybe adopting someday, but apparently my body had other plans, and I am terrified and excited, and I do not know what to do." Vincent stared at her for a long moment, then let out a whoop of joy that startled his father-in-law in the corner. He swept Victoria up in his arms, spinning her carefully, laughing with pure delight. "We are having a baby," he said wonderingly. "Victoria, we are having a baby. Are you happy?" She asked, needing to hear it. "Happy? I am beyond happy. I am terrified too, but mostly happy." He set her down carefully, hands moving to her still flat stomach with reverence. "We are going to be parents." The news spread through the family quickly, bringing tears and celebration. Emily immediately declared herself the baby's favorite aunt and began knitting tiny clothes. Victoria's mother fussed and worried and made plans. Her father built a beautiful cradle, spending hours getting every detail perfect. But it was Vincent's quiet joy that meant the most to Victoria. He talked to her belly every night, telling their unborn child stories about his parents, about Victoria's strength, about the life they would have together. He read to them both in the evenings, poetry and newspaper articles, and anything he thought might interest a baby. He was attentive to every change in Victoria's body, fascinated by the process. The pregnancy was not easy. Victoria's damaged leg made balance difficult as her center of gravity shifted, and the extra weight caused increased pain. There were days when she could barely walk, when she had to rely on Vincent to help her with basic tasks. But he never complained, never made her feel like a burden. "We are in this together," he would remind her when she apologized for needing help. "For better or worse, remember. This is the for worse part, and I am honored to be here for it." Winter arrived, and with it, Victoria's time drew near. She grew large and uncomfortable, unable to find positions that did not hurt her leg or her back. Vincent helped her walk daily, supporting her weight, determined to keep her mobile despite her discomfort. On a cold February evening, as snow fell softly outside, Victoria's labor began. It was long and difficult, complicated by her old injury. The doctor came and stayed, looking worried as hours stretched into a full day. Vincent held her hand through all of it, wiping her forehead, murmuring encouragement, refusing to leave even when Martha suggested he wait elsewhere. "I am staying," he said firmly. "She needs me." And Victoria did need him. When the pain became too much, when she was sure she could not continue, his voice anchored her. His hands supported her. His presence reminded her that she was strong enough for this. Finally, after more than 24 hours of labor, their son entered the world with a fierce cry that brought tears to everyone's eyes. He was small but healthy, with a shock of dark hair and his father's gray eyes. "A boy," the doctor announced with relief, handing the baby to Victoria. "Strong lungs on him. He is going to be just fine." Victoria looked down at her son, this impossible gift, and felt her heart expand beyond what she thought possible. Vincent leaned over them both, one hand gently touching the baby's tiny fist, his face full of wonder. "We made him," Vincent whispered. "Look what we made, Victoria." "What should we name him?" she asked. They had discussed names but never quite decided. Vincent was quiet for a moment, looking at his son, then said, "Thomas, after my father, if that is acceptable to you." "Thomas Cole," Victoria said, trying it out. "I like it. Welcome to the world, Thomas." The baby's early months were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Thomas was a good baby, healthy and growing well, but he still woke through the night and demanded constant attention. Victoria struggled with the physical demands of motherhood on top of her existing limitations. There were times when she needed Vincent to take over completely, when her legs simply could not support her anymore. But they managed, as they always did, by working together. Vincent did night feedings when he could, walked Thomas around the house when he fussed, changed diapers without complaint. He hired a young girl from town to help with heavy housework so Victoria could focus on the baby. "We are a team," he reminded her when she worried about not being able to do everything herself. "That is the whole point of marriage. We cover for each other's weaknesses and celebrate each other's strengths." As Thomas grew from infant to baby to toddler, he brought more joy than Victoria had imagined possible. He was an easy child, curious and affectionate, with his father's steady temperament. Vincent was a devoted father, making toys at the forge, teaching Thomas words and songs, carrying him on his shoulders around the garden. When Thomas was 2, Victoria discovered she was pregnant again. This time she was less shocked, though no less nervous. The second pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because she knew what to expect. Their daughter arrived on a warm May afternoon, 3 years to the month after their wedding. They named her Grace, for the grace that had brought them all together. Grace was different from Thomas, more willful and energetic, keeping them all on their toes. She had Victoria's determination and Vincent's stubbornness, a combination that promised interesting years ahead. Life settled into a comfortable pattern. Vincent and Victoria's father expanded the smithy, bringing in more business and hiring additional help. Vincent's skill became well known in the region, and people came from surrounding counties for his ironwork. The business thrived, providing security for their growing family. Victoria continued managing their household and garden, adapting as her children grew. She taught them early on about her leg, explaining matter-of-factly that Mama had been hurt but was fine now. They accepted it without question, the way children accept all the facts of their world. Thomas learned early to slow his pace when walking with his mother, and Grace instinctively offered her small hand for support when Victoria looked tired. The iron flowers Vincent had made continued to multiply, until their entire property was bordered by metal blooms that never faded. People came to see them, marveling at the craftsmanship. Vincent began taking commissions for similar work, creating lasting beauty from iron and fire. Victoria's relationship with the town evolved too. As Vincent's business grew and their family became established, people stopped seeing her primarily as the crippled girl and started seeing her as Vincent Cole's capable wife, as Thomas and Grace's mother, as a woman who had built a good life despite challenges. The whispers faded, replaced by respect. Samuel Morrison moved away eventually, his marriage having failed after a few unhappy years. Victoria felt no satisfaction in this, only a distant pity. She had long since stopped thinking about what might have been if he had stayed. Her actual life was so much richer than anything she had imagined with Samuel. On their 10th anniversary, Vincent surprised Victoria by taking her back to the spot in the garden where he had proposed. The iron rose he had given her sat in a place of honor in their home, never tarnishing. Now he presented her with another gift, a metal vine covered in flowers that he installed as an arbor over their garden gate. 10 years, he said, pulling her close. 10 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, and a life better than I ever dreamed possible. I love you more today than I did when we married, and I did not think that was possible. I love you too, Victoria said, leaning into his embrace. You gave me my life back, Vincent. You saw me when I could not see myself. We gave each other life, he corrected. You gave me a home, a purpose, a family. You gave me everything I was looking for without knowing I was looking for it. They stood together in the garden as the sun set, surrounded by the life they had built. Their children's laughter drifted from the house where Martha was watching them. The iron flowers caught the last light, glinting like promises kept. You ever think about that day? Victoria asked. When you first rode up asking for directions. All the time, Vincent admitted. I think about how close I came to riding right past your house to not stopping at all. What would have happened if I had gone straight to town instead? You would have found work eventually. Maybe would have met some other woman. No, he said with certainty. There is no other woman. It was always you, Victoria. From the moment you looked up at me with those sad, proud eyes, it was always you. Victoria turned to face him, reaching up to touch his cheek. The scar along his jaw had faded over the years but was still visible. He had his own marks, his own wounds from life. They had both been broken in different ways, and somehow that had allowed them to fit together perfectly. Thank you, she said softly, for kneeling down in that garden all those years ago, for proving me wrong about everything I thought was true. Thank you for letting me, Vincent replied, then kissed her as the stars began appearing overhead. The years continued to unfold, bringing changes and challenges. Thomas grew into a serious young man interested in his father's trade, spending hours at the forge learning metalwork. Grace became a spirited girl who loved the garden and had inherited her mother's determination. They added 2 more children to their family over the years, another boy and girl, rounding out a loud, loving household. Victoria's leg never truly healed, and as she aged, the old injury caused increasing pain. But she had long since made peace with it, seeing it as simply part of her story rather than the defining feature. She walked with her stick, managed her pain, and lived a full life regardless. Vincent's hair turned gray at the temples, and his hands bore more scars from years of working with fire and metal. But he remained strong and devoted, still looking at Victoria like she was the most precious thing in his world. Their love deepened over the years, becoming something solid and unshakable. They celebrated Emily's children, stood as godparents, helped her father as he aged, and eventually passed peacefully in his sleep. They mourned Martha when she followed him a few years later, grateful she had lived to see her grandchildren grow. They weathered economic downturns and good years, droughts and plenty, the endless cycle of life in a small Missouri town. On their 25th anniversary, Vincent organized a celebration at their home. All 4 children, now ranging from Thomas at 23 down to their youngest at 12, helped prepare. Friends and family gathered in the garden, now mature and lush, bordered by dozens of iron flowers that had become legendary in Independence. As the party wound down and guests departed, Vincent found Victoria sitting on their porch, the same porch where he had first told her he cared about her all those years ago. "Tired?" he asked, settling beside her. "Happy tired," she confirmed. "It was a beautiful day." 25 years, Vincent mused. "When I rode into Independence asking for directions, I never imagined I would still be here a quarter-century later, that I would have all this." He gestured to encompass the house, the garden, the life they had built. "Nobody wants a crippled bride," Victoria said suddenly, quoting words she had not spoken in years. "That is what I told you that day in the garden, remember? I remember everything about that day." "I was so wrong," she continued. "You wanted me. You chose me every day for 25 years. You built this entire life around proving me wrong." "It was not hard," Vincent said. "You were always worthy of being chosen. You just needed someone with eyes clear enough to see it." Victoria leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of her husband, hearing the sounds of their children cleaning up inside. "If I could go back and talk to that broken girl sitting on the porch, convinced her life was over, what do you think I should tell her?" "Tell her to hold on," Vincent said quietly. "Tell her that the life she thought she lost was never meant to be hers anyway, that something better is coming, something real and lasting. Tell her that being broken just makes room for grace to enter." "Grace," Victoria repeated, thinking of their daughter. "We named her well, we did." Vincent took her hand, his thumb tracing over the wedding band he had placed there so many years ago. "I would not change a single thing about our story, Victoria, not one moment of it." "Neither would I," she agreed. "Even the pain, even the hard parts, they all brought me here." They sat together as stars appeared, the same stars that had witnessed their wedding, the births of their children, every moment of their shared life. Victoria thought about the girl she had been, certain her future held nothing but loneliness and pity. That girl could never have imagined this. A devoted husband, healthy children, a business that thrived, a community that respected her, and a love that had only grown stronger with time. Vincent had been right all those years ago. Her injury had not destroyed her. It had simply redirected her path, leading her to exactly where she needed to be. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, the same question he had asked countless times over their marriage. "That I love you," Victoria said simply. "That I am grateful for every day we have had and every day we will have. That you taught me what real strength looks like." "We taught each other," Vincent corrected, as he always did. "That is what partners do." As they sat together in the comfortable silence of long marriage, Victoria reflected on how wrong she had been about so many things. She had thought her worth was tied to a perfect body, to meeting others' expectations, to being what society deemed acceptable. Vincent had shown her that worth was inherent, that love was not about perfection but about showing up consistently, about choosing each other even when it was hard. The cowboy who had knelt down in her garden had not just proposed marriage that day. He had offered her a different way of seeing herself, a different story than the tragic one she had accepted. And in accepting his love, she had rewritten her own ending. Their story was not the fairy tale she had imagined as a girl. It was better, more real, built on honest foundations rather than romantic fantasy. It was a story of two broken people who found each other and discovered that broken pieces could create something beautiful when fit together with care. As the night deepened and they finally rose to go inside, Vincent paused at the door. "Thank you for taking a chance on a drifter," he said, "for seeing past my rough edges to what I could offer." "Thank you for stopping to ask for directions," Victoria replied. "For seeing past my injury to who I really was." "Who you are," he corrected. "Not past tense. Who you are today, right now. My wife, my partner, the love of my life." They entered their home together, greeted by the noise and warmth of family. Thomas was discussing metalwork techniques with his father, even as they cleaned. Grace was organizing flowers in vases, making everything beautiful. The younger children were arguing over some small matter in the way siblings do. This was the life Victoria had built from the ashes of her old dreams. Different than what she had imagined, but infinitely better. She had learned that sometimes the worst moments of our lives redirect us toward the best ones. That losing what we think we want makes room for what we actually need. The years continued to pass, bringing the inevitable changes of time. Their children married and had children of their own, filling the house with new generations. Thomas took over the smithy business eventually, expanding it further with Vincent as advisor. Grace married a farmer from the next county and brought her husband back to independence, settling close to home. The younger children found their own paths, each carrying forward the lessons their parents had taught about resilience and love. Victoria's mobility decreased as she aged, until she relied heavily on her walking stick and Vincent's arm. But she never complained, never wallowed in self-pity. She had learned long ago that difficulty was simply part of life, to be managed rather than mourned. Vincent remained devoted until the end, his love never wavering. When Victoria's health finally began failing in their 50th year of marriage, he sat by her bedside holding her hand, just as he had during Thomas's difficult birth. "I am not scared," she told him one evening as they sat together. "I have had such a good life, Vincent. You gave me everything I needed." "We gave each other everything," he insisted, his voice rough with emotion. "I was nothing before you, just drifting from place to place. You gave me purpose, a home, a family. You gave me meaning." "Then we both won," Victoria said with a smile. "Two broken people who fixed each other." "Not fixed," Vincent corrected gently. "We were never broken, just unfinished. We completed each other." Victoria passed peacefully in her sleep 3 days later, surrounded by family, with Vincent holding her hand and their children gathered close. She was 72 years old and had lived to see 7 grandchildren. Her funeral was attended by what seemed like half of independence, testimony to the life she had built and the respect she had earned. Vincent lived 5 more years, continuing to work in the smithy until his body no longer allowed it. He spent his final years surrounded by family, telling stories of Victoria to grandchildren who had never known her without him by her side. He tended the garden they had built together, surrounded by iron flowers that would outlast them all. When Vincent finally followed Victoria, he was buried beside her in the Independence Cemetery. Their shared headstone bore both their names and a simple epitaph. "They chose each other, every day. Thomas inherited the house and maintained it carefully, preserving the iron flowers and the garden. It became a family landmark, a place where descendants gathered to remember the couple who had proven that love was not about perfection, but about showing up, about choosing each other despite and because of their flaws. The story of Victoria Harper and Vincent Cole became a local legend, told to young couples facing their own challenges. The tale of the bride who thought herself unwanted and the cowboy who knelt down to prove her wrong. But those who had known them understood it was more complex than a simple fairy tale. It was a story about resilience, about refusing to accept the limitations others tried to impose. It was about two people who saw past surface damage to the strength beneath. It was about building something lasting through consistent choice rather than momentary passion. Years later, when Thomas's own grandchildren played in that garden, they would find the iron flowers still standing, untarnished and strong. They would hear stories of the grandmother who walked with a stick and the grandfather who saw her beauty despite it. They would learn that real love was not about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone worth fighting for and choosing them every single day. The house in Independence remained in the family for generations, a testament to what Vincent and Victoria had built. The business they had started continued to thrive, passing from father to son, each generation adding to the foundation laid so long ago. And on quiet evenings, when the light hit the iron flowers just right, it was said you could almost feel the presence of the couple who had planted them. Victoria, who had learned she was stronger than she knew. Vincent, who had found home after years of drifting. Two people who had taken their broken pieces and created something beautiful, lasting, and true. Their story proved what Victoria had been too hurt to believe that day on the porch, that being damaged did not make someone less worthy of love. That the right person would see past scars to the soul beneath. That happy endings were not about perfection, but about finding someone willing to kneel down in the dirt beside you and build something real. Nobody had wanted a crippled bride, except for the one man who mattered. And in choosing each other, Victoria Harper and Vincent Cole had created a legacy that outlasted them both, proving that love, real love, saw everything and chose to stay anyway. The end.